Councillor Leone.
Okay, I'll try and keep mine pretty brief as well. Look, I just wanted to first start off by acknowledging Phil. Thank you for all the hard work that you do. Just first going to focus on Auckland's economy. Gary, the question that I have for you is, obviously, you know, we've heard about all the negatives that are happening at the moment, but is there anything that we as a council can be doing differently to help with that situation? Because, I mean, if we think about things like tourism, I'm trying to compare us to other cities that have got a similar population size that have bounced back a lot faster. So is there any particular areas, because we know even in terms of tourism that would bring millions of dollars into the city, obviously if we had more tourists coming through. But are there particular areas that we could be focusing on to assist with bringing our economy back up?
Thank you, Councillor. It's a very good question. My general response is that it's very hard to react in time for these short-term fluctuations, and the things that the Council can do to support the economy, I think, are worthy and to be done with a sort of a medium-term or ongoing perspective in mind, rather than trying to react to particular short-term fluctuations. That would be my view. So that there are some ways that the council can support the economy meaningfully. Particularly, I would think the productivity of the economy and our powerful levers there are in the space of land use, in the investment program that we have for infrastructure, particularly transport infrastructure, and also the way in which we set charges around growth infrastructure. They're all powerful through that medium-term focus. But in terms of short-term responses to the economy, I don't know that it's so easy for us. Given the lags between us making decisions, being able to put things in place, and the scale of the impacts that we can make, there are powerful forces through the economy that are cyclical in nature, and they'll always be there. If I could offer just a very simple analogy, I think of, if you think about the sea, the ocean, the waves that fluctuate up and down, that's the sort of cyclical nature of things, sometimes a little bit up and down, and we're constantly sort of bobbing along in these ups and downs. But if we sort of step back from that, we can think about which way is the tide heading, shall we say, and if we just focus on the waves, we lose sight of the bigger trend, which is the tide coming in or out. So I wonder if that helps in terms of an analogy.
And no, that's really helpful, because, I mean, I was looking at the numbers of 11,000 jobs that have been lost, and, I mean, I know we're the biggest organisation in the city, and just thinking about things like work experience and trying to get young people into jobs and stepping stones and things like that. And I know in other countries or other cities around the world where they're able to provide some kind of service to help young people in terms of pathways to get into work, that's all part of economic productivity and things that I think we could be doing better. Yeah. I don't know if you want to make a comment on that. Okay,
No Danish cake for that one.
I haven't finished. Sorry, I've just got one more question about the CCO reforms. So just coming back to CCO reform, I can see that obviously everything is going ahead in June. Have we got any early indication that we're actually going to save some money from that?
There is a cost saving from this exercise of between $1.5 and $2 million. But the intention is to redirect that saving into the activities of the Auckland Urban Development Office principally. Why? Because if you recall, we're effectively giving it a broader mandate to operate not just in the regeneration projects that Eke Panuku has done an excellent job with, but in some of the greenfields areas and in terms of some other transport related developments and so on. So the intention is to not harvest that, but to reinvest it in development outcomes in the area that it came from. Okay.
Okay, and is that the same with strengthening the political monitoring that's going to be happening as well? Because I can see that's built into that to make sure that we're doing a higher level of monitoring.
My judgment is we can strengthen those things without needing to spend a lot more money. Okay, otherwise we would be taking that money and adding, if you like, policy analysts and what have you. And I think the bigger priority is the coordination of the development activity and the government and the private investment in there.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Councillor Filipina.
Morena, Chair. Morena koutou, gentlemen. Phil, question to you. With what you said around Auckland Transport and the legislation that is at this stage would be put back, do I have your assurance that any of the legislative changes that is going through the government, that any decision around, do I have your assurance that there's going to be no discussions with Auckland Transport pending the legislation to make changes before it comes into effect? Because, and the reason I asked that question is I asked you previously around who would end up making decisions around the legislation and what happens with Auckland Transport, and your answer was the governing body. So do I have your assurance, please?
Firstly, that the legislation will go through a fulsome process. So the governing body will be, it'll be open to the governing body to submit on that, and of course that's a decision and discussion for yourselves. I can't give you an assurance that we're not going to work with Auckland Transport in advance of that. In fact, that's exactly what we are doing, partly for the reason I mentioned, which is that some degree of collaborative work needs to start now in relation to the next generation of the Regional Land Transport Plan. Okay. The key here, though, is that will be the subject matter for the workshop on the 11th with you, and anything that we're talking through or possibly doing will be visible to you and require your endorsement.
No, that's it. Thank you. And can I put my name down for whakaaro, please?
Councillor Ferry, please.
Hilda, thank you. I've got a couple of questions, and I would just note this is our chance to sort of hold the organisation accountable. So I know there's sort of often a pressure in these meetings to be quick, but also this is quite an important item. So I'm not going to make any apologies about having two questions. Firstly, a question for Gary around the Auckland employment losses, and I've asked this in the past, and so it's sort of a continuation. About how many of those we think are attributable to central government agency job cuts. One thing I'm hearing is that a lot of, or not necessarily a lot, but some government officers that had an Auckland-based team are pulling back to Wellington. Is that something that we can see through the data, or is that just anecdote at this point?
Thank you, Councillor Ferry. I do recall your earlier question, and I think we might have sent some information through. It was some time ago, I know, but our conclusion at that time was that the losses were primarily driven by the cyclical downturn in the economy through the private sector, and that the losses that we could observe that could be attributed to the public sector in an Auckland context were very small and non-material to the movement of that number. Which is not to the job losses.
Sorry.
Yes.
So is that, do we think that's still the case, though? Or are we starting to see, because I am starting to hear these stories of, you know, people who had Auckland-based teams and now they don't have Auckland-based teams anymore, but sounds like perhaps that's just anecdote.
I don't have the information in front of me, but we can look to update the information we previously sent you. But just thinking about the sense of scale of the Auckland economy and the cyclical impacts on unemployment, through the downturn, and then thinking about the scale of public sector jobs in Auckland, I would be surprised if the public sector side was a material contribution to that figure. But we can email you some more information if we can find it in the public domain.
Yeah, that's cool. Thanks, Gary. I'm probably going to continue to ask about trying to understand this better as things go on, but appreciate that update. The other question is probably more for Phil, which is a recovery office question. So we have a forecast at the moment of 1,215 buyouts. I think I heard you say it was a little while ago now, that we have around 800 either bought or close to settle, or between 800 and 900. That's still about 400 to go. And I wondered if you had, which is, what's that, a third. So I wondered if you had any insight on, noting that we do expect the buyouts to be finished by the end of the year, so there's still quite a bit of time to go. Are these primarily ones that have been categorised relatively recently? I think everybody's been categorised now. Just sort of wanting to understand, is this the remaining 400, are a lot of them going to be easy, or are a lot of them the harder tail that, have more complexity? Do we have a sense yet of, where that's up to, whether we're going to be on target to meet everything done by December? Obviously, it's of a real acute issue, interest to very specific individual families, but also there's issues there around what happens next with that land, and queries that I'm sure everybody's getting, where a building is not being maintained, and people perceive that we've bought it. Actually, we haven't yet. So yeah.
Look, I haven't got the detail in front of me. The recovery office is reassuring me that we are on track for full completion by December. You're right, there's still quite a number to go. It's probably closer to 900 completed, or almost completed, in the sense that there are literally sale and purchase agreements out with some folk. So that might give you a sense. And to one aspect of your point, yes, it's true that if you joined the queue quite late, others were to be prioritised for completion and fairness. So I would expect a higher proportion of the remaining 300 odd to be people who sought categorisation quite late.
Okay, cool. I think it'd be helpful to have a bit more understanding of that, because I'm sure I'm not the only one hearing in the community. People are saying, it's taking ages, or other people are saying, we settled months ago. And I think it would just be helpful for us to have a really clear picture of some of the data there, so we can put that in context for people. Being able to say, if it's nearly 900, then that's, 3/4, isn't it? Am I doing the maths right? Off the top of my head while I'm sick, sorry. Yeah. That's really good progress. But for people who are in that remaining quarter, that's hard. So maybe some stats that could break that down, saying, look, of the ones that applied, say before July last year, noting September was the deadline, most or this percentage of them have been processed. And some of that kind of breakdown I think would be really useful for us. Thanks.
I'll ask Mace to circulate a briefing note to you.
That'd be great. Thank you.
Councillor Lee, please.
Thank you. This report actually is extremely interesting. I draw your attention to Table 1, current economic indicators. The indicators in the table are essentially a mix of national metrics and Auckland regional metrics. Just in regard to international net migration for the year to March, is the 26,400 people increase, is that related, is that a national increase, or is that a Auckland increase?
Thank you, Councillor, for your question. Through the Chair, that is a national figure. The 26,000 is nationally, and Auckland will have a share of that, but we do not know the share of that.
Okay, so we've got more people. what I'm concerned about is there seems to be, well, obviously the national economy, despite really low inflation, is getting so low that we could get to the level where Reserve Bank governors make after dinner speeches about inflation being too low. But anyway, the economy is still soft nationwide, we'll call it soft. But in Auckland, we seem to have, if we look at figure 1, for instance, card spending real, there's a 1.7 differential between the national level, New Zealand, and the Auckland level. That seems to indicate a particular Auckland problem. Now, the whole idea of the super city, if you remember, the whole idea of the amalgamation, one of the principal goals was economic transformation, or at least economic efficiency. And yet Auckland seems to be doing worse than the rest of the country. And I wonder, here it's put down to Auckland's economy continues to show soft consumer spending and employment, reflecting the impact of high interest rates. You're not saying interest rates are higher in Auckland than the rest of the country?
Thank you, Councillor. The interest rates are nationwide, and it's really about Auckland's sensitivity to those higher interest rates. And we've seen a pattern of Auckland tending to be more sensitive in the downturns and doing better in the upturns. So through the cycle, we tend to be a bit more responsive. We don't know the answer to that exactly, but a couple of plausible theories are the composition of our industries is different from the national composition, and of course, interest rates through the channel of household debt are the level of debt that our households hold. So they may be reasons why we are sensitive through the cycle.
I'm wondering whether the impact of high interest rates is the whole story, and whether there's an elephant in the room that we seem to be ignoring. This organisation financially is doing well. We've got a 5.8% pay increase coming up, rates increase for rates alone, but that equates to $3 billion impost on Auckland households, plus $786 million from water care charges, plus other charges and costs coming from the Auckland Council group. I'm wondering whether not just high interest rates are the problem, but I wonder about whether we are a negative force in the economy, or rather than the positive force that this organisation was meant to be. And if there's an Auckland sort of subset recession, there's an absolute depression in the city centre. Again, we see a differential in terms of impacts. City centre pedestrian count is down from the year before, and yet this is after COVID. City centre retail spending is down 8.5%. There is a real concern here that I think this council needs to get its head around, and also look at not just the sheer cost of this council's activities on ordinary Aucklanders, but actually what it is doing or not doing, sins of commission or sins of omission. In terms of PT, for instance, which ratepayers have paid enormous amounts of money for, overall we're failing 11%, but in the city centre we're down 34%. Not only that, so we're losing traffic from a failure in our PT services, not helped at all by fare increases, and then even worse and even more disruptive, I believe, are these AVO, authorised vehicle only plans, to blockade off Queen Street to motorists. And again, here's another cost, 20 million collected in fines, and how much is being collected in K Road every week? A huge amount. So what I'm concerned about here is our own impact on Auckland's economy, and I think we need to actually give that a lot more thought. This information is very useful data, but we around the table, and I dare say management, need to give it a lot more further thought about what we are doing and not doing that actually is helping or harming Auckland's economy.
I don't know if that was a question.
Well, didn't take a point of order, so it must.
No, I was.
There was a number of questions in there.
Thank you, Councillor. Just very briefly.
The answer to the first one was very long, actually. Thank you.
My comment would be that I guess we're always, you raised some good points about weighing up the impacts of activities, but broadly, if you think about the size of Auckland Council relative to the regional economy, it is not large relative to, say, central government, the spending share, the tax share. It is material in the context of the national economy, but our share of the regional economy, it is not large. And so I don't think that the numbers that you see here are a result of the level of rates or the level of spending from Auckland Council. We've got 150 billion for Auckland's regional economy in terms of the measured output in GDP terms. And then if you think about the size of the council relative to that, I don't think we have an impact on our economy through the cycle in the way that we levy rates and spend.
Okay, Ken Turner, please.
People are being squeezed, and we're part of it.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mine was just a comment. I can wait.
I wouldn't worry about that, mate. I haven't heard a question for the last. Look, hour, so you may as well have a crack.
I just want to speak about drain maintenance because to stay silent would be disingenuous to all the comments I make outside this room. I agree with a lot of things that Councillor Bartley said. We are not maintaining our drains. This is underpinned by Healthy Waters always reminding us that there's 17,000 kilometres of drains and waterways in Auckland, and how can we possibly keep up? We are not maintaining our drains. The public are observing the places where the drains are blocked and not working to capacity, irrelevant of them being overwhelmed by large storms. And to back up Councillor Bartley, we need to be seen to be doing it, but that means actually getting it done. And the man controlling the drone should be given a shovel. So I just wanted to point out that we still need to focus on our core services and put funding in that area. Thank you very much.
People are allowed to do their own drains, of course, but that's old school. Most people can't find a spade anymore. Councillor Henderson.
Yeah, thanks. And thanks, Councillor Turner, for sparking a idea. I'm wondering if it's possible, and this is kind of a question, is it possible to get a paper from Healthy Waters to actually identify what it would cost to maintain these kilometres of assets that we have? Because we're not working with figures yet, right? If the public are demanding that this should get cleared twice a year or 4 times a year or something like that, or daily, goodness, yeah, then it'd be good to have a figure attached to that to say, well, it's going to cost you X amount. So I'd like some more data on that. I'm wondering if you could feed that back so I don't have to. Thanks, Phil.
Yes.
I can probably answer that because I get rung by people and they say, oh, no one's cleared out the culvert in front of my place. And I thought, well, you know, it's good for you. If you've got a spade, try and do it yourself. And they said, oh, I pay rates. And I said, have you paid enough rates for us to have somebody 24/7 standing outside your house, watching that drain on the off chance it might fill 20 metres from your house all year long? We would have to have drain guards by the millions. I mean, what are we becoming? Nappies will be delivered to all people shortly.
Absolutely. I think that,
Mis-
so if we're arguing to adjust levels of service, which is what the public are asking in some points, then having the
I
dollar
understand the
figure.
point. We can
Yeah.
get some advice.
Yeah.
Okay, Councillor Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just in reply to your notion that people should get out and clear the leaves or clear the rubbish or whatever is blocking the drains, I would just be remiss of me not to mention an individual who does that. Councillor Filipina will know this gentleman because he's ex-Kiwi and Auckland Rugby League player, now a superannuant, and every time it rains, he lives in Herne Bay, very posh part of Herne Bay. Every time it rains, he is out doing that, literally for hours on end, bailing out water. And the reason I know that is because he phones me up to tell me, and with a few choice adjectives chucked in, as to how at his age he's out there literally for hours on end having to bail out water. And I have, of course, brought this up in the past, but it seems to be a recurring problem. But I just would make the point that there are people who do that, and who do that every time there's heavy rain. I guess in the instance of this fine gentleman, it's more like a scene out of Papillon than just picking up a few leaves, because he is literally out there for hours. There's a lot of units there that he essentially is protecting by doing that.
Well, that's very good news. We should offer him up to get one of those ASB awards.
To put another angle, it might be some sort of penitence for the number of individuals he incapacitated on the rugby league field over many years. So I don't have that much sympathy for him. But I just would make one final point, and I meant to say it yesterday, certainly within the Albany ward, I would like to give commendation for the manner in which the flood recovery project in terms of fixing roads occurred over the couple of years, where quite a number of roads have been progressively fixed to a high standard and now operating. So I certainly am grateful for that. Thank you.
Thank you. That's very excellent, very entertaining. That one gets a bun as well. Okay, you two guys, you can drop back because we've entered the comments about half an hour ago. And as anyone surely can't find another bloody comment, I'll have to listen to them. But righto, Filipina and Hills.
Kia ora, Chair. Mr. CEO, you ended up mentioning some highlights, and I just want to acknowledge your staff in regards to what I believe is definitely highlight, and that happened on the 15th of March at the Policy and Planning Committee that is chaired and deputy chaired by Councillor Hills and Councillor Dalton, and that was Manaki Tamaki Mokoto, 2 years' work, putting 5 policies together and having the strategy for the Auckland open space sport and recreational strategy. So I just wanted to, that's a highlight, 2 years. I know that there are other strategies and work that's still going after 5 years, but 15th of March, so I just wanted to acknowledge you and in particular the staff. Kia ora, that's it. Ciao.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Hills.
Thank you, Mayor, and sorry I'm still sick, and I thought I wouldn't ask a question because they all turned into debating points. But I do just want to, it is pretty hard out there for our Healthy Waters staff and the contractors who are doing their best. But I will give you just a brief synopsis of what is happening. And I did ask Nick at the last transport exactly what has been asked today. Could we have more accessible granular detail like we have on the rainfall data, like we have on the dams? And he said yes, they will work on it and do it as best as they can, so we have access, that they turn to green once they're done, etc. But in the Waido catchment, there's 2,500 catch pits, and during pre-storm, they clear 36 massive hotspots that's sucking basically the catch pits out. There's 2 trash racks that are checked on a weekly basis. There's floating litter traps. 4 of them are checked and maintained on a fortnightly basis. The ponds and wetlands are maintained monthly. The channels of the Waido catchment, the whole catchment, is inspected every 3 months. The other hotspots, those 36, are inspected monthly, but they are also sucked out every storm. There's also the road sweeping and others. But as Councillor Henderson says, I have asked Craig in the past, what would it be to maintain all 98,000 catch pits every week or every month? And it's something, and it's like tens and tens of millions of dollars, which is fine. But when we have people saying that we shouldn't be putting up the rates, that's all operational funding. So people vote against the rates or say we shouldn't have rate rises when I think it's the lowest rates rise out of the metros. This is the cost of it. And I think Ross has told us before that our current rates rise is mostly just depreciation and borrowing costs on the assets we're putting in. So I would love more focus on here, but I think we added 20 million in 2023 to the maintenance of our stormwater assets. We can keep doing that, but that 20 million was a 1% rates rise. So we just need to make sure what we're asking is possible, but also that we're able to celebrate, or not celebrate, but talk about what is done, because there's a lot done. Frank Tian has been our operations guy for Healthy Water since North Shore City days, and he can tell me all the exact areas that flood, don't flood, get emptied. But he says as soon as it rains, they fill up almost instantly with all the debris coming off roofs and houses and streets. And then it becomes too unsafe for them to start doing it while there's a rain thing. The other one, and I think we talked about it yesterday, the consents and the floodplains and everything. 15 workshops I think we've had on this, and I know there'll be eyes rolling in the room, but either people have just started realizing we've been talking about that for 2 years, or weren't listening. But we have asked Phil and Megan and everyone, Phil Reid as well, significant amount of work's being done, but we are hamstrung by government requirements, the RMA, the Building Act, but we've had significant workshops on what we can do. Of course we want to do more, but just be careful again. If you want banning of building in floodplains, that's tens of thousands of properties, maybe even 100,000 properties in Auckland, and we would probably have to end up buying those if you're prohibiting current use. So I guess we just need to know what that comes out for. And yeah, I do think there's a little bit more to be done on the city centre work. People need to know what's happening. The work down on Queen Street now is a $115 million water care project. It's nothing to do with the city rail link, but people think it is. If we don't do that sort of work, those 90-year-old pipes will start spewing crap into the road like is happening in other cities. So everything on balance is on balance, but we could try and sell and tell people what is happening and try and speak about it as positive investment of their rates going into stuff that, if we don't do, is much more disruptive and much more damaging and much more concerning to our city as we see. But anyway, I don't know if this actual item is a working for us, Mayor. I think, Phil, maybe it's a workshop that we can do this, or, it could be a public workshop, but we just load you up with 15,000 things that many of us have asked you 19,000 times before. I think some of it's important, but I think maybe there's an easier way to do this, because now it's 3 hours into the day. But yeah, thanks.
Oh, God. Okay. I'm going to move this because, in fact, it was so long ago we started, I forgot to do that.
Brown,
And-
Dalton.
Brown and Dalton, and I'm just checking back to see what it was we moved. Everything's finished, so I'm going to move and put that. All those in favour, please say aye. To the contrary, carried. In a way, a lot of that was things that if you've got something for the chief executive, just drop him a note. I mean, we don't all have to endure every thought, please, that crosses people's mind. We've now got the quarterly report, and it could be an opportunity to open the whole lot up again, but please try and restrict yourselves a little bit. Oh, thank you very much. Right, we've got that bit done.